Hello, everyone. We are, Halah and I are here because we are going to review the indie pick of February, which was technically 2 books.
Yeah. But me reviewing the second one is
reviewing one of them
a little different.
We've discussed the other one at length together.
Yes, we have. Though I'm willing to hear what other people think about it.
That's true. But you unfortunately will miss that stream where we do discuss it. So you are here today to talk with me about Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. Fantastic. This was a historical fiction with a little fantasy twist to it. The Regency period historical romance with some fae.
Is it kind of low fantasy? Do you think it falls in that category?
I would say a low fantasy.
Low fantasy. Yes. And a tundra.
But it was cute. It's short, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I inhaled this book.
Right?
So, I'm trying to remember everybody's names.
I know. I had to flip through real quick again and be like, names. Because I remember the feeling I got when reading this.
Exactly.
And, I remember the little plot points, but I was like, oh wait, specifically
the names. I was like, I remember Dora, Elias. It is Elias, right?
Yep, it's Elias,
okay.
The Lord
and
Sorcerer.
Albert. So apparently I have 3 favorite characters, and those are them.
I forgot the maid's name. Mrs. Jennings or Miss Jennings or something?
Jennings or Jensen.
Did they give her a first name?
I think at one point they do when she is called by her first name by the person. Without spoilers.
I forget it. I know though that in the sequel, I believe she is the main character in the sequel.
Okay.
Because I was looking ahead because I want to read the next books.
I absolutely agree.
Either the sequel or the third book is Miss Jennings.
Miss Jennings.
Yes.
Continuing from now or early Miss Jennings?
I know. I think it's continuing. Continuing from now. So there is a prequel novella called Lord Sorcerer, which is all about Elias.
I did see that.
So there is that. But yes. Who do you think was your favorite character of these guys?
I kind of want to say Dora.
For
the main reason that she is a very atypical protag, where the reason it's half a soul is because half her soul was stolen by a fae, and the half that's left is emotionally deprived.
Yes,
she can only really build up long emotions, not just impulses.
Right.
So she's very muted.
Yeah. And she doesn't have any sense of propriety or what's actually how she should properly react to things, you're saying.
Yes, because she is in a high society situation with just her upbringing, living situation, etc.
Yeah.
So it's funny because she'll make a comment and then she'll be like, "Oh, that probably wasn't what I should say in this situation."
That was wrong.
It's just
the social awkwardness. Yeah.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's she also does not quite care that it was the wrong thing to do.
Yep, because she'll say how she feels.
Yeah. So she was a very unique protagonist.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially in a romance.
Yeah.
Or half romance.
And with especially how it turns out in the end. I really liked the message behind that because I was worried we were going to go down a path of she needs to be fixed.
I had a similar impression going into the last third.
Yeah.
That her getting fixed and being whole was gonna happen. And I was like, but is that still her? I like this character.
Exactly.
I really don't care about her other half.
That's why I loved what Olivia Atwater did and the message she brought forth. I was worried we were going to go down that path because that would have definitely taken stars away. But we did it.
I know it didn't. I was writing my quick little notes. Since we're talking about the main character Dora specifically, she was described at least 2 or 3 times, with the red curly-ish hair. But I cannot stop picturing a brunette bob
And I'm like, no.
I don't know if that's because of Dora the Explorer or what's going on.
Exactly.
But like, and that's a good, not a good sign, but it's not a bad sign either. But for authors in particular, like, it's okay if people don't picture things the way you picture them.
That's true.
Because it didn't matter what she looked like to me, but that's what I was picturing, even after you told me I was wrong. And I was like, no, this is what she looks like. So
yeah, I think before she was described, I was picturing a very Mary Bennett type of character. I mean, she kind of is a little Mary Bennett, but like that same, that mousy brown hair kind of thing.
Yeah,
not that definitely not a bob. It's not what I thought because we were in Regency, but tied back. So,
I couldn't find like the picture I'm thinking of, but I'm semi playing this game on my phone called June's Journey, and like that really short haircut.
You were in a wrong time period,
probably, and I know because like they do their hair up and everything, but that is 100-year difference between the time periods here. This is like that's what I was picturing.
1805 to 1810-ish here. And that's 1920s.
Regardless, that's what I wanted.
That's fair. That's fair.
But speaking of, I guess, visuals, usually I'm a color snob in the way of, or not a cover snob, where I want illustrated covers. Everything should be illustrated, but this cover over here, I love it.
It's exactly what it needs to be.
It feels period.
It feels period.
It suits the period it's written in,
and it suits the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a reason there are these on the cover.
Yes, and then the stars with the little chains from the other thing there. So this is a super cute one, and like all of the covers in her series look similar, but like
there's a brand,
and it's got a brand. It's got a brand, and it fits the story. So I know it's not illustrated, but I'm very okay with this cover.
Well, I love how we're very different cover snobs.
Yeah, a little bit.
We're both cover snobs, but in a very different ways.
Oh yes, I want decked out illustrations.
I like symbols. This is
and
a perfect cover for me.
And, like hidden meanings.
I like
that. I just want to see that character.
I like having a puzzle to look at, to figure out, and as I read, I go,
definitely got that. Yeah. World building. What did you think about the world building? I'll let you kind of start off here.
I thought world building was good because it is historical fiction, but it added kind of an alternative with it, with having magic being just a well-known kind of practice, or like it was still very Regency England for all of the Regency period pieces that I have read and watched, but adding that element in where there is a Lord Sorcerer, where there is like this the King's Magician kind of thing, and having that just regularly accepted, but it wasn't like full blown everyone has magic, it was just kind of, that's why it is a low fantasy
or like secret magic either.
Yeah, it's like it's not something that everybody dabbles in, and there's some taboo behind it. But I really liked the building in it, and building with the Fae world and how the connections were. I was wondering like how the beginning scene in particular with the Fae was going to play in. And then with the Lord Sorcerer, I was like, okay, but we have like Fae. Do they know about Fae? Is this something that's going to be revealed? And then with the Lord Sorcerer's background, you go, okay, now it's all melding together.
Yeah. Fully agree. Because it was like that Regency England setting, it did not require a lot of like building up and showing, because I think the general population of readers, maybe probably Atreyu disagrees, at least for us, it's something we're familiar with. So we just needed like the little accents to really place us. Whereas with
no, we want to talk
like, no, I want more magic. Shush, baby. What's that? Okay.
Yeah.
With the Fae, I mean, I still was definitely picturing like elves, but we didn't get overwhelmed with the Fae world or how Fae, or like how the magic works. We do have
We have that too, Atreyu. You're right. You're right. We have that.
He's like, we have enough, and I think even the way she characterizes the Fae culture in the few scenes we do have,
it was enough.
It's sufficient. It's a short book, so you can't really just drag it on.
I love the interpretation of it too.
Yes,
because there's a lot of different ways to interpret Fae, and I liked that it's still like you could tell they were Fae, but they were their own. So like it wasn't like we're looking at Lord of the Rings elves. It wasn't like we were looking at
like a Thumbelina fairies or something.
Exactly, or a Peter Pan kind of situation. What it reminded me of was a little bit of the Kingdom of Bach by Marie Lu.
Okay.
And the Fae situation there. But it's fantastic book, read it. But it did remind me of kind of that, where they're these kind of mischievous and they don't bend by the rules of, humanity and humanity's morals.
Right. And that was the really nice, I guess, twist to it was the way that they approached like moral things to us. Very, very different. Like I said, they're a bit eccentric, but it was who they are. It didn't feel like they were immoral and that made them bad. It just felt like they have different values and they are Fae. Like it felt, I wasn't wanting for more. I felt pretty satisfied with the descriptions and the characters that I got as far as the world building goes, but I could definitely enjoy more, like with the continuing book. So plot. There was the very big plot, but I think it was also like chunky.
They were all interwoven pretty nicely, where especially with like Dora's plot in general with her cousin, because we have the big overarching plot is Dora, half a soul. What do we do about her?
Right.
Her and Vanessa needing, finding a husband in the season, but secretly trying to help find a cure for Dora. And then entangling themselves in with Albert and Albert's family with this mysterious, or helping him and this kind of fake courtship. And then the plague situation. That's where, when I was reading it, I was like, what is this plague? What is that? Is it the Black Plague? What are we doing? What time period are we in? And then as we went on, you're like, oh, now it connects. Absolutely. And then of course with the sub-romance plot for Dora and our boy.
Yes. Expanding on that, with the romance being, even though like I would still consider this book a romance. Yeah. The romance was very much more of a subplot to everything else going on. Yeah. So for someone who doesn't typically read romance, it was much more enjoyable to watch the characters interact because it was such a slow burn.
Yeah, it was.
And it was, like for a while, I think you actually didn't think they were getting together, but you were so happy they did. Yes. And then
especially for what? How many pages was this? Not even 250. Didn't even break 250, and it had a slow burn romance that was so believable.
Absolutely.
And it meshed so well, and it was a subplot. It was almost equal to like the main overarching plots, but it was sprinkled in so nicely. That it wasn't overbearing.
The pacing was fantastic for this book. Because like with all of those different plots going on, I like just from hearing about it, you can kind of get overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many things, confusion, chaos. But it was very smooth. Like the author did a fantastic job of carrying you through the story with the character, and like we said, interweaving all of these plots into a very smooth story that super easy to read. Like I said, I inhaled it.
And that's why I was surprised that you liked this one so much, because I know you don't tend to gravitate towards more romance heavier books.
Yeah.
But this one was.
This one was great. I mean, believe me, in my like favorite books, part of my favorite parts are the slow burn romances, but it's not why I picked up the books. It wasn't. the main plot. It's super subplot, but I'm like, thank God.
Mm-hmm. Whereas I definitely enjoy romance in my books.
Oh yeah,
I enjoy that quite a lot. Not to the extent of some romance novels out there. I like my good fluffy romance. That's the romances I gravitate toward.
Yeah, kind of diverting from a usual review. You as an author, what do you think you learned from reading this work or were inspired by? I guess I'm interviewing you now. Go.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at my Wi-Fi signal and I'm worried.
You glitched for a second, but you're clearing up.
I'm clear for you. Okay. I'm worried. It's still low. I know it's like, I think I get like you said before, pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Pacing is something like, for me, I write big books, right? And so this was a really interesting way to see a big story condensed.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, it showed me a few ways to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of just character creation in this. It did a lot of unique things. It did some things that I didn't necessarily was like, oh, I'm kind of sad it didn't go that way, but okay. Like with Vanessa, I wanted a bit. I'm kind of sad that also, like in later books, I don't see a description that has one for Vanessa, because I think it would be a good, like, if we were going to make a series of companion novels, that Vanessa should get hers and then Miss Jennings has hers, and you have your main three leading ladies kind of thing. And this is only because I'm literally reading Well Met, and that's what Jen DeLuca does. Gotcha. You have your leading ladies kind of sprinkled in the plots, and then each book is a different one. Strange House does that as well. So I think she could easily do that. But yeah, I would say pacing and even in the world building alone, because it was a familiar world that was enhanced. And as someone like me, I write urban fantasy. That's kind of what I have to do, is a familiar world that we enhance with magic and things. So I think I would take that from reading this book.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking of my answer, so you can No, for sure. Like, those are, I don't write huge books, but I do feel like the majority of what I write has to be serial. So being able to look at something as a standalone successfully, which was Strange Gods last month was also, I mean, I know you wanted more, but I still feel like it's plenty strong as a standalone. So getting to see that is definitely going to help me, because I do have some planned standalones, but I always try to put too much. So I think streamlining some things, but emphasizing, like I said, the accents of the world building versus, well, I don't have urban fantasy and I don't have contemporary, so the whole world has to be built. But
that's true.
Taking those techniques, and like I said, I'm a huge fan of like a slow burn romance that, like, it doesn't feel like a romance, even though you're like, these two, maybe. And while I don't write that in particular, because people have sad things, it's not easy for them. I do think the character interactions in particular, where they felt so natural for the setting, for the whole plot, is definitely something to keep an eye on with writing in general. Characters. Yeah. Yes to that answer. It's true, but it's also like, how do you convey that?
It's difficult too.
Yeah, it is, for sure.
I also wanted to point out, you said that you inhaled this book.
Oh, for sure. 2 days.
And I just looked on the back of this, and somebody else another author reviewed it, Jacqueline Benson, said, I gobbled this up like a slice of cake. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. It's such a refreshing, decently lighthearted, feel-good book. Like, it really is. I wasn't
still addressing heavier topics.
For sure.
Because
addressing heavier topics, but you don't feel sad. Yeah,
you don't feel overwhelmed by them, because one of the main points for Lord Sorcier's characterization is kind of white guilt, or rich guilt, because he has, this power and stuff, but there's so many people suffering all the time, and he hates seeing, like, the noble class just indulging
ignoring
themselves constantly
everything,
while
yeah.
they're all the workhouses and things, and all these people are suffering all the time.
Mhm.
And Albert gets looked down upon for having a prosthetic arm, but but he's a freaking war hero basically.
Yeah.
So that kind of contrast, which we still see in today's world,
Mhm.
and I that seeing his characterization like that as someone of a nobler class, feeling how we all feel as working class people was really, really good.
Yeah.
So it gives you a sprinkle of everything. You get your romance, you get your fantasy, you get your story, you get your heavier topics, you get your friendships, you get it all.
Oh yeah. The bromance.
The bromance.
We need more bromance, y'all.
And even in the broship, even between Dora and Albert.
Oh yeah.
Like that was fantastic.
Like that's how you
do
write
a male
and a female friend that don't end up together.
I was worried that when we first went into this, and I was like, oh no, they're gonna do a fake dating trope, but then you have
or a triangle,
dark and sensual man, where we're gonna have a love triangle, and we didn't, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I'm very glad it wasn't a love triangle, because I already knew who was gonna win.
Yeah, it's very obvious.
I think we said that's like the issue with love triangles is like who she's gonna pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I personally did like how Albert's story turned out. I know you were kind of on the fence about it.
I still am. I think it's only because Vanessa has more page time than Miss Jennings. And that's where I didn't quite see I didn't think of Miss Jennings as high up on the scale of like important characters. And
I totally like the first time she went out as the chaperone and was like, let's go do laundry and let's do all the things. I'm like, oh, she is a strong lady. I like.
She is a strong lady. I just didn't think, because when I think of a chaperone, especially in Regency period, usually I think a much older woman, and so I didn't picture her as someone who was of like a more middle age to be. Yeah. That would be an according age, I guess.
Well, I definitely think she was older. I just don't think she was old.
I just didn't think she was as important, because I thought she was going to be kind of not a foil, but like because she was hired by the mean aunt and stuff. I didn't think she would play as important a role in that as she does.
I'm glad she did. I mean, I'm okay with how Vanessa turned out as well, but I think early on when that whole like fake dating, not dating, courting was going on,
it's fake
dating. I was like, oh, is Vanessa going to end up with Albert? And I was kind of disappointed because I'm like, I mean, yeah, he's nice. She's kind of nice. I think it's not it.
Yeah. The reason I wanted it to be that way is because of Albert's family, wanting someone to love him, and Vanessa's family pressuring her to marry well, but not that guy. But pick anyone but that one, because he's prosthetic arm, he's broken. And I wanted Vanessa to have her grow and be like, but he's one of the sweetest men you'll ever freaking meet, because Albert's fucking adorable. And so I wanted that direction. I'm not mad about the direction it went, but that's what I was expecting.
Yeah. That's what I expected and was not hoping for.
Yeah, because in the end, Vanessa, I feel like, doesn't have as much growth as she could have had, because she still does exactly what is expected. She still marries or gets the rich guy, and doesn't, and kind of like does exactly what her aunt would have wanted her to do, instead of having her own little bit of rebellion.
I didn't think it was too necessary. It was very in character for her to marry who she's going to marry.
Yeah.
So I think when she and Dora had that little bit of difference there with, Dora expecting more from her, and, she never, takes that leap, but Dora accepts it like, okay, it was kind of wrong for me to put my own expectations on Vanessa with everything going on. So Vanessa was brought up that way. Not to say like she didn't deserve a rebellious or
Mhm.
character arc. But, you know, for the little bit of time, it really wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't
enough page time to do it.
Yeah.
That's why I was also kind of hoping in a sequel we would see some more, but we don't.
No. And that's probably because, you know, she's just living the socialite rich, like she probably ain't doing nothing.
Yeah. The next book, I presume she's just popping out babies for that dude. So, you know, whatever. As one
Maybe
does.
one of the kids will have a Fae adventure.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, super satisfied with the book.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
This is one I'm probably where I will probably pluck it from my shelf and read favorite scenes again when I'm like in a mood.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna end up with a bit of the red, white, and royal blue shelf of
little tabs of
with
like.
I'm gonna end up tabbing some of my favorite scenes. And
mostly this scene.
Yep. There's quite a few I can show. I'm like looking at it right now, being like, wait, I want to go back to that one scene.
Yeah,
especially that ballroom one.
I do want to say, because I did have this feeling while reading and while thinking back, the choice, like intimate scenes where the love is budding.
Yeah.
Had a little bit of a fanfic satisfaction. How do I want to word this?
No, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, there is that like
fanfiction-y.
A little fanfiction-y, like where you get that instant like yes.
Yeah. That gratification.
But also like untouchable at the same time. But it wasn't like written in poorly done fan fiction. It was if you wrote a fan fiction of this is the scene you'd put in. Like,
yeah. I'm happy that, because it is, you know, and it's an adult fantasy, that it didn't play to the tropes of like traditionally published adult fantasies, because those are not adult fantasies, but like adult romances in general, they require sex scenes.
Well, and I mean, a lot of the indie pub is kind of banking on that too.
And a lot of indie pub does bank on that a lot, which is why this was freaking refreshing.
Yes.
In that it played to a believable romance without having to over adultify it.
Mm-hmm.
And make it
without sexualizing it.
Yeah, without sexualizing it. And so it was still showing a healthy adult relationship without being based on the foundation of sexual attraction.
Yeah,
which
for sure.
I thoroughly appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And we need more of in the literary world.
Yes.
Anyway, yes.
I'll still take an animation. Or a movie.
This would be a good like Ghibli-esque animation.
For sure. Especially like I said early, and you were kind of like, Howl's Moving Castle.
I can kind of see it now.
The setting. Yeah. Just like magic is part of it, but it's not like everybody.
Yeah.
And it's
I can agree with that now. Okay. Now that I had time to mull it over, you know.
Yes. Except there wasn't as much like food porn. Like for sure in the movies and in Diana Wynne Jones' books,
there was
food. Oh my gosh, you get hungry every like chapter.
Yeah, don't read those books hungry.
Every scene. It's like Chinese.
Have your food before you read those books, guys. Well, that was a review of Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. You can get it on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle. I don't know if there's an audiobook. There might be an audiobook.
Didn't someone say
I think Fee found one. Fee might have found an audiobook of it, which is fantastic. But it's delightful. It's whimsical. Mm-hmm. It's romantic.
And it's good.
Fantastical. All the adjectives.
All the good adjectives.
Yes, all the good adjectives. So pick it up, check it out. That was the indie book of February. Woo! Check it out. Woo!
I gotta fill my reviews now.
All right, and because I'll probably be airing this with the stream, back to the stream.